Here are some things that I wish I knew before getting the DJI Pocket 3. And before I get into those, I have to say this Pocket 3, this camera, it's fantastic. It does so many things well, and I really like how DJI implemented the 1-inch sensor in this camera. To the point where I feel like the 1-inch sensor here, it's abnormally good than the 1-inch sensor that I used to use before, such as the Canon G7X, I believe that's the name for it. For some reason, this camera overall, it just feels better and looks better compared to that little camera. And on top of that, you can actually shoot 10-bit D-Log on this as well, which makes this camera a lot more appealing to the professionals and the enthusiasts. The fact that you have a tiny gimbal in your hand while making videos is also a plus, where we're not cropping in just to stabilize the footage. I find the functionality of this camera very enjoyable to use, and on top of that, we also get the DJI mic 2 if you opt for the creator bundle, I believe, and the microphone syncs up with the camera right away once you turn it on. I do kind of wish that whenever I turn on the camera, the microphone would turn on itself as well. Maybe that's a little bit too much to ask, but just curious. The microphone on this camera is way better than I expected, especially the DJI mic 2. But even the built-in internal microphone is fantastic. It's great. Like, you can also go into settings and then change to the microphone to like back and front. At first I was kind of iffy about it, but I actually had the chance to test it out and it actually works really, really well. Like, surprisingly well. I don't think I could ever do that with the cardioid shotgun microphone. I mean, even though I can still kind of project my voice behind the microphone, but most likely it's still kind of muffled. Unless I'm using those kind of like two-sided microphone, like the Deity. I believe it's the D4 Dual, perhaps. But yeah, other than that kind of microphone, any of the shotgun microphone that I've been using is like cardioid, and it's great in the front, but then whenever I'm talking behind the camera, it's always muffled. And not to this DJI Pocket 3. Both of the microphones sounds amazing. It's also quite clever where you can hold these filters by magnet on this case. I do wish that we can hold more inside this case though, and perhaps maybe make this case into like a tripod or something so I don't have to screw this on and off every single time. Overall, it's just a little bit too much things that's going on, and that's definitely nitpicking because there are just a bit too many pieces that's going on. It's not hard to get familiarized with all of them, but it is a hassle to have to carry every single piece with you, especially because I want to have the tripod all the time with me just for more dynamic shots instead of having just this little thing right here. I mean, this is tiny, the profile is small, but if I can just attach like for example, if the USB-C here is on the back over here, and then I can have the tripod thread right at the bottom, this way I don't even need to have this little thing. And that's one less thing to carry around. Perhaps they just couldn't fit everything in here yet, maybe in the future model. And I also do see how they might implement more lens on this gimbal head here, just like how they did with their drones. And that to me might be the perfect vlogging camera. But now let's go over some of the things that I really don't like about this camera. There's not much to say, but there are still a couple. Okay, maybe more than a couple. First of all, we can't really stack filters. So if I have the ultra-wide angle lens filter attached, I cannot use my ND filter or even the mist filter because none of the filters are stackable, which means if I'm using the ultra-wide angle lens, I cannot use mist filter as well. And that really limits the functionality of this lens because what if I always want to have my mist filter on? But if that's the case, I won't be able to use mist filter with the ultra wide angle, the 15mm. And the same thing goes with the ND filter. If I am going ultra wide angle, I can't use any of the ND filter. And on top of that, whenever you have a filter on this camera, it doesn't retract back in like towards the arm over here. Like, you just kind of like hang out on the outside here because it doesn't. There's not enough space for it to retract all the way in, which also sucks because what if I want to have the ultra wide angle on here all the time because that's how I want to vlog? You basically can't do that. Well, I guess you still can, it's just that the lens is gonna be like just out there wobbling around. And another thing that I don't like is that face tracking and D-Log is not available whenever we're using night mode. For me personally, whenever I'm vlogging or making videos, I do like the tracking, but I don't necessarily turn it on all the time because it feels a little, I don't know, it's just not my thing. So that is not really a big deal for me. Honestly, there's not much bad things to say about this camera. I'm mostly nitpicking because like 90% of the time I can use this camera like perfectly fine. I mean, I do have a bit of beef with the ND filter and the wide angle lens because I can't stack them together, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. But I say if you're just starting out or getting your first vlogging camera, this is a fantastic tool to have in your bag. And of course, that's if you don't want to have like an actual camera body with a lens where you might be able to do more in the future, either for videography or photography. And then this camera is definitely for you. It's perfect for vlogging. If you're just doing that, then it's perfectly fine. I see myself using this as kind of like a behind the scene camera. It's definitely not as good as the Canon R5 that I use all the time for work, but this is a great camera to capture behind the scenes and all of that fun stuff. And I can imagine if you have this camera and just kind of like it as your main talking headshot, and then have your phone, perhaps the iPhone 15 Pro Max, where you can zoom in to grab like a couple telephoto B-roll shots for your vlog. And that'll be a very interesting like travel combo, since the zooming footage is just not as good as the regular one, obviously. Now, at the time of me recording this video, I was not able to get my hands on the extension adapter where I can mount this like a POV mount or a chest mount, or mount this on like a bike or things like that. But I did find rather kind of like a workaround for this. And the very first way to do this is that if you have like a bow head like this, and where you can detach at the bottom, and then now I have like a Peak Design capture plate attached to the bow head, and all I have to do is to attach this tripod plate right underneath the DJI Pocket 3. So this way I can mount this perfectly fine on a bag where my capture is located, and then I can have this sit kind of like on my shoulder, if you will, to capture like POV shots or perhaps a hyperlapse of me moving around the city. Now, so that's one way to work around it. It's not perfect, and the ball head is kind of heavy. If you can find like the one I have here is from Joby, but if you can find a lighter one, that'll definitely be more ideal. And then another way around it's actually very interesting. So I have this Shimoda bag, the Explorer V2, which I love, by the way. I've been using this bag for quite a while now, but it has this pocket on both of the straps. And funny enough, I can actually fit this DJI Pocket 3 right inside the pocket, where the gimbal head is just like sticking out right there. And now I have like a perfect POV shot whenever I'm wearing the bag with me. This does not like, it does not come up here at the shoulder as much as the bow head workaround. It actually fits perfectly. I can also like adjust the gimbal head and kind of like point towards where I want it to point at, especially with the ultra wide angle lens. I have a lot more field of view to work with. And I find that to be a very, very interesting POV shot workaround. And on top of that, the footage is, it's definitely better than like my GoPro footage. Now the biggest downside is it's not weatherproof, so I won't be able to use this camera whenever it's raining outdoor. But other than that, I think it works really, really well.